So, okay, how to do this concisely. So I think how it works is if you skip the Banshee spawn on the bridge, roughly 6 Banshees spawn. I think it's 6. You want to get that down to 2 or less to get the next wave to spawn instantly after you kill the Phantom, right? So there's 6 Banshees. You want to get the count down to 2. You can't just count how many you kill because your teammates can kill them. So 6 Banshees spawn. You get left, center, or right. Let's see what we got. So I got right first, right? So I have to bring the Banshee count down to 2 or less if I want instant spawns. However, there's 2 setups that you can do for the troop, the troop, enemy troop phantoms. Well, there's 3 setups you can do, right? Let me play it out.
Not for long, Phantom's inbound.
Why am I not surprised?
Pick a turret, Romeo. Conserve your ammo. This is gonna get hot. Phantom to our right.
Look out, Banshee! I'm gonna kill you with light. Rockets ready. Reloading.
So there's this setup here, right? So here I'm on the 10-second timer, right? Because when the Phantom died, there was 3 or more Banshees. Let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, right? So 3 Banshees, so that wave was delayed. For this setup, you want to just get the count down to 2 or less, and you want these Phantoms to spawn in as quickly as possible. Because you can usually get set up with your turret there and your rockets here in time, right? You just want it to arrive as quickly as possible. The other setups are where you
Not for long, Phantom's
kill the
inbound.
Phantoms a bit sooner.
Why am I not surprised?
Pick a turret, Romeo. Conserve your ammo. This is gonna get hot. Phantom to our right. Banshee up above.
Give me room.
So for the long-range rocket setup, right? I actually intentionally go on a 10-second timer here. So I intentionally kill the Phantom so that I'm on a 10-second timer. And that allows me to get set up for these long-range rockets, right? So I'm waiting 10 seconds, waiting 10 seconds, waiting 10 seconds. And then... Wait, were there 5 Banshees? I think there were 5 Banshees. So that's 20-second timer. And then I do the long-range rockets, right? The benefits of this setup is that you can kill the Phantom very quickly, right? Because it's basically by the time the Phantom arrives, you would probably have dropped the Banshee count to 4 or 3. So you can just kill the Phantom and go on the 10-second timer really quickly. Then while you're on the 10-second timer, you can get set up for these long-range rockets. And these long-range rockets are the fastest way to kill these Phantoms here. But anyway, timing was off. But yeah. So actually where to aim and stuff like that, you just have to look at a PV vid and just copy. You basically just push up against here. I aim, see the center of the, so I don't know, the tip of the hook, I don't know, the center line of the middle of the crosshair, right? So there's a line here. I line the edge of it up against the third light. Sorry, the second light, the middle light on the on this building. So there's 1, 2, 3. I line this middle crosshair up here, and then shoot. So I moved the cursor to the left a bit. So one rocket's here, the other rocket's here, and then you reload. So then you reload, and then you shoot in the same spot. And I fire the first rocket as soon as the phantom appears. And then just spam the second and third one.
Not for long.
And
Phantoms
then
inbound.
for this other one,
Not for long. Phantoms inbound.
Why am I not surprised?
I then, so I 2 rockets,
Phantom to our right.
rocket, rocket, reload, fire in the same spot as the second, reload, and then basically as soon as I can, I just aim in this spot. Again, you're just gonna have to copy. I aim in these 2 spots, reload, and then I'm standing here, right? So just next to this. And I aim the crosshair so that it's snug up against the curve of these, right? So see how like the 40 and the KL are like the curve of the rockets are like snug up against that. And then when the grunt on the right hand side of the phantom crosses this corner is when I fire the third rocket. And the reason I do that, you can fire it earlier, it's just that when you shoot the gunner off the top of the phantom, if you accidentally break off the main gun, it can delay the phantom. Like, you see the phantom like sometimes slow down and speed up. So you can mess up your lineup. So I wait for this moment because it gives the phantom time to catch back up. So I fire the third rocket once this gunner here crosses this corner. And that usually does it. Okay, the other method is if you get the instant spawn, you actually want to bring a missile pod with you and use the missile pod. So I'll try and get that set up. I'll try and do that method. Just, I mean, does that make sense? Does that rocket lineup make sense? The benefits are using the rockets, long range rockets is the fastest way to kill those phantoms. But you put yourself on a 10-second timer. But it's okay because you put yourself on a 10-second timer really quickly. Because it's really easy to get to 4 or 3 Banshees. It's hard to get it down to 2 Banshees, right? And if you're fighting Banshees while the Phantom's just sitting there, you might end up taking 10 seconds to get the Banshee count down to 2 anyway. So, on average, that long-range rocket setup, by putting yourself on a 10-second timer, that's like best bang for your buck. But let's say that you do get the Banshee count down to 2 or less. Like, what's the setup? So the setup would be something like this.
Long. Phantoms inbound.
Why am I not surprised?
Pick a turret, Romeo. Conserve your ammo. This is gonna get hot. Phantom to our right.
So I would make sure that I would have rockets by now. So I would make sure I've got rockets. I would grab one of these 2 missile pods, right?
Watch the backblast.
And you'd move as quickly as you can to here. And then you would let the Phantom get about as close as it is now. You don't have to try and shoot it from far away, about where it is now. 4 shots. And then here, it's once the Phantom starts to turn and go upwards, you shoot 2 missile pods and then aim a rocket. And you just got to judge the rocket, right? So 2 missile pods. Oh, no, I missed the rocket.
Watch the backblast and over.
I think I was a bit early with the missile pods, to be honest. So you need at least 6 bullets in your... Something like that.
Watch the backblast. Think there's more of them?
So this is what to do if you get the instant spawn. No. The missile pods and missile pods. So your mileage may vary. So the only quirk with this, so as you can see, this phantom here, this one here, it ends up blowing up later, right? Like it takes longer to die. So this is actually a couple seconds slower than the long range rockets, but you don't put yourself on the 10-second timer. However, it just depends how quickly, you can get those Banshees down. If you're taking 10 seconds to get the count down to from 4 to 2 or 3 to 2, then you might as well have put yourself on the 10-second timer anyway. Ideally, what happens is, by the time this phantom arrives, the Banshee count's already 2 or less, and you just kill the phantom as it arrives. But usually, if you want to do this setup, it usually takes a bit longer to get the Banshee count that low. So that's where it's like RNG, right? It's like, it's not a random number. It's just about how much your teammates are helping, how close the Banshee spawns are, whether the missile pods hit. If you can get the Banshee count down quick enough, then you can do like faster things. That's the RNG aspect of it. So ideally you're either on a 0-second timer or a 10-second timer there, right? And 0-second timer, you do the setup with a missile pod. You need at least 6 shots. A kind of optimal way to do it is kind of like this.
Not for long. Phantom's inbound. Why am I not surprised?
Pick your turret, Romeo. Conserve your ammo. This is gonna get hot. Phantom to our right. Banshee.
Okay, let's just say that I've got the Banshee count low enough. You can do 2 shots, rocket, and then if you get the instant spawns, like I'm set up with a missile pod here, right, with 6 shots. Ready to go. Yeah, so what I do for full game is I get wrong question, zombie. Read the question. You're trying to play it too smart. What I do for full game is I try and make sure the Banshee count's 3 or 4, kill the phantom as quickly as possible, and then I go get set up for the long range rockets. If I just happen to have the Banshee count low enough or close to low enough to 2 or less, then I'll go for this missile pod setup. But I don't try to go for this setup because it can be a bit all in. It's like a bit all or nothing. If you try and get the Banshee count down to 2 and then kill the phantom, sometimes you take too long and the phantom will start flying off and then it's difficult to kill the phantom. So I try and get the Banshee count to 4 or 3, kill the phantom. Since I'm on a 10-second timer, you often then have time to shoot a Spartan laser before you do the long range rockets, and then I do the long range rockets. And that's just like best bang for your buck. But in the IL, like if you look, I don't know if Daniel's... So the only other difference is that this setup I'm doing with missile pods, you can do it with the fuel rod. So Daniel does it with a Furoid instead of rockets. And I think you'll see like, let's see what the ILs do. Okay, so what oh wait, Hark does the old strat. What if you hybrid the two and use missile pods for the second phantom? Yeah, so the in terms of speed, right? It doesn't really matter when this phantom dies, right? It's the last, once the enemies are all dead, then the next wave spawns. So the speed is how quickly this phantom dies. And the fastest way to get this phantom to die is with the rockets. And I'm talking like it's 2 to 3 seconds faster, right? Like it's not huge, because with the long range rockets, this phantom ends up dying on the way up. But when you have the missile pod, you have to, right, like kill it up here. Whereas like if I did the long range rockets, the phantom would already be dead by now. And if you do something like this, where you try to do missile pod for this guy and long range rockets for this guy, you just don't have time to set up 3 rockets on the other guy. Like you don't have time to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like rocket, and then reload, and then go rocket. Like you don't have time to do that. Does that make sense? Like I know I'm being doubly sure that we're all on the same page, because it is a bit confusing. The opposite would be more consistent. Okay, so I find doing
Not for long.
yeah, I find the long range rockets more consistent.
Why am I not surprised?
I find, for me, doing for this second phantom, doing missile pod, rocket to try and kill it, I find that harder than just doing this long range rocket. And then this one here. I would say these 3 methods. So standing on the box here and shooting the phantoms, doing missile pod here and missile pod here, or doing long range rockets and long range rockets. Like all 3 of these methods, I would say are like 100% consistent down to user error, in my opinion. Like it's basically whatever. If it's like there's nothing that's more consistent than the other. The only consistent aspect is how consistent can you get yourself on a 10-second timer or a 0-second timer. And that's where the bang for your buck comes from. On average, putting yourself on a 10-second timer, on average, killing the first phantom quickly and putting yourself on a 10-second timer is going to be better bang for your buck on average than trying to get it down to 2 or less. And if you put yourself on a 10-second timer, it at least gives you the opportunity to choose between whether you do long range rockets or you do missile pod. If you're on a 0-second timer and these next 2 phantoms spawn instantly, you have to do missile pod strats. You can't do long range rockets. And I find long range rockets better. Like they're arguably more consistent. The one thing that isn't consistent is you get a bit of storm action here. and there's a turret grunt that can survive your missile pods. Maybe it's ledge only. I don't know. But sometimes the grunt can survive and stand here. And sometimes enemies are actually on these ledges here. So, in a sense, Missile Pod is actually a little bit more RNG. You know, for like the Storm RNG reasons. Like not actually RNG, just like unluck. Because the enemy's getting closer to the platform, there's more likely that there's a chance for them to survive. Whereas the long-range rockets, this Phantom never gets close to the platform. Okay. And I'm like 99% sure that grunt, it doesn't count. Like you have to get one or less enemies, one or less ground troops alive, I think, or two or less. I don't think that grunt counts as a ground troop. I think it counts as a Phantom. I think. I could be wrong. But yeah. And if the Phantom's alive, then the next wave doesn't spawn. So don't worry, Thick Elite. No tests or exams. That would just be too cruel. So the only other thing is if you watch Daniel's 439, he does the missile pod setup with the fuel rod, and you might prefer that. However, let me actually put it on screen. If you just give me one moment. Because it's important to talk about this aspect. Because we're getting nerdy here. I have to talk about. So let's have a look at this. He gets the Banshee count down to 2 or less. Kills the Phantom as soon as it arrives. So this is like the fastest setup. Basically, as soon as the Phantom arrives, 2 or less Banshees are alive. Grabs the turret with the fuel rod. Instant spawn. And then it's kind of like the Arc, right? Where it's a full fuel rod clip or so to kill the Phantom. However, like, so you end up having to take the fuel rod, right, to do this. What I like find easier, just simpler, is just to get the fuel rod and give it to your teammates as soon as possible. And the reason you do want to give, your teammates the fuel rod if you're really trying to go fast, is when this happens, right? Whoops, wrong button. I hit end instead of right arrow. So while Hark's killing Banshees here, his teammates are shooting the Phantom. So he can focus on getting down to 2 or less Banshees while his teammates kill the Phantom for him. So that's how to make like a bad situation faster if you get lucky. If there's just so many Banshees and you have to do all the hard work yourself, you can save yourself having to kill the Phantoms if you just get lucky and let your teammates kill them. And they're most deadly to Phantoms with the fuel rod. So the only issue is that sometimes they kill the Phantom too quickly, right? Like there's too many Banshees in the air and then they kill the Phantom too quickly. But if you're trying to like IL PB, it's worthwhile like bringing the fuel rod and trying to play around your teammates having the fuel rod. I've started going in for it in full game just to try and pop off a bit on NMPD, but you could argue for consistency's sake, you don't want your teammates doing anything and you just want to manage the wave fight yourself. So I hope that makes sense. And that's why I don't do Daniel's fuel rod setup, because he has to like take the fuel rod with him, make sure he has ammo to give back to the teammates. Whereas I just take the fuel rod, go straight to Dutch and give him the fuel rod. That's like the first thing I do. And then I trade it with the fuel rod on the Spartan laser on the ground, just so that it can do juggling in the middle wave. But yeah, anyway, I don't know if that's kind of a detail, but we can move on from that. Let's go over it. So when I first arrive here, I find Dutch, give him the fuel rod,
Not for long. Phantoms inbound.
trade on the ground. So you can see that. Right, when you want to juggle the Spartan lasers, you want roughly even ammo count, right? So that you're constantly alternating down to 0-0 on each Spartan laser. If you had like 76 on one and 20 on the other, you can only alternate like once, right? So what I do is I take the Spartan laser from Dutch. It has less than 100 ammo, so I trade it with the one on the ground, and now this has 100 ammo. So this one has 4 shots left, this one has 5 shots left. On the first wave, I'll use at least 2 shots or so from this Spartan laser. And then when I come back, I'm holding a 3 shot and there's a 4 shot on the ground. I'd pick this one up, shoot a 4th shot, and then juggle from there, right? And they're constantly one off. If I didn't switch on the ground, right? And I use like 2 shots from here.
Why am I not surprised?
Then after the on the second rotation, I'm then trying to juggle a 36 Spartan laser and a 100 ammo Spartan laser. So you don't get many switches, right? You don't get to juggle many. So what I usually do is I come up the ramp, give the fuel rod to Dutch, trade, start missile pod Spartan lasering stuff. Take an opportunity like this to grab rockets, grab some more missile pod, and then as soon as the Phantom arrives, hopefully the thing's dead. Don't fail the jump.
Reloading.
I just keep shooting lasers. I don't try and leave. You maybe want at least 3 shots for the last wave. That would be like that's when I stop shooting. If I'm ever down to 3 or less shots and it's not the last wave yet, I'll stop shooting. Otherwise, I just use laser as much as I can. And you just got to use your judgment as to when it's best to use missile pod or not. Like the detached missile pods. You know, it's hard to learn exactly when a detached missile pod is likely to hit or not. You just have to spend a bit of time into it. It's kind of like it's hard to tell when Banshees are in range or not. I get it wrong so much because I try and greed way too much. You just have to try and use your judgment as to when a Banshee's in range and when it's best to use a missile pod or not. Okay, but that's the whole setup for the first rotation plus the auto-scroller troop phantoms, right? That's all the considerations there. You can maybe look at like what Daniel and Hark do in their ILs, and you can look at their past ILs as well, like go to their history on their profile, and you can check out Hark's full game runs and just take note of like, okay, which rockets does he grab? When does he grab them? You know, which laser does he grab? And just see what works best for you. A part of what I do is just consistency. So I do the same strat every NMPD. My setup is the exact same for the first wave. Furod to Dutch, switch the lasers, laser a missile pod down, kill the first Phantom, and get a 0 or 10-second timer, and then decide what to do based off if I got the timer or not. The only quirk is left first. It can be hard to get left first, do a switch, you know, do your missile podding, and then get rockets, right, in time to like the spacing's just hard. So often with left first in full game, I'll end up just doing this strat and just accept the time loss, right? Because it can just be too hard to like, I don't know, get rockets from here.
Not for long. Phantoms inbound.
Trade weapons with Dutch.
Pick a turret, Romeo. Conserve your ammo. This is gonna
Get guys off the turret, and then I'm already probably late to the Banshees, right? So I end up kind of using all three strats some of the times, but yeah. Okay, so let's just progress the wave fight a bit. And so what I'll do for the first Phantom, by the way, this is the last thing. For the first Phantom, if I go to put myself on a 10-second timer, I'll grab an 8-shot missile pod. I'll try and shoot 2 at a Banshee, shoot 4 at the Phantom, and that leaves 2 in the missile pod, and I'll leave it just there, right? And that way I can come back to it at the end. And I know that I've always got a 2-shot missile pod here. So I'll do something like this.
Pick a turret, Romeo.
Not for long. Phantoms inbound. Why am I not surprised?
Pick a turret, Romeo. Conserve your ammo. This is gonna get hot. Phantom to our right. Banshee.
So I'll do something like... something like this. Dude.
Not for long. Phantoms inbound. Why am I not surprised?
Dude, fuck. Why is it in a row now?
Not for long. Phantoms inbound. Why am I not surprised?
Pick a turret, Romeo. Conserve your ammo. This is gonna get hot. Phantom to our right.
So if there was a Banshee in range, right? I'd shoot 2 at the Banshee. 1, 2, 3, 4. Leave this here. And then I'd go line up my rocket shots. And then that that missile pod is what I come back to for the end. That's like how I set myself up. Alternatively, I can't believe there's more. There's even more. Can you believe it? There's even more. I forgot to mention something else.
Why am I not surprised?
Pick a turret, Romeo. Conserve your ammo. This is gonna get hot. Phantom to our right.
Wait for it. Smile. Hot there. Coming at you.
Okay, so let's say you get the 0-second timer, right? If you take a full missile pod, One, two, three, 4. 1, 2. Then leave that missile pod there, and then that missile pod I can come back to at the end. Right. So that's like a way to like set yourself up so that you always have a missile pod at the end with at least 2 missile pod shots in it. Okay. We're now up to the second rotation, which is actually pretty straightforward. It's just the whole Banshees over Phantom thing. So it's just use missile pods attached or detached, Spartan laser juggling, as and when needed, and try and drop the Banshee count. Like it's just before whatever rotation it is, second. That's just what you got to do. You got to try and do your best judgment as to when to use detached missile pods or attached missile pods or Spartan laser. We're just going over NMPD for now. No runs at the moment. So then, what's the cutoff? So again, it's 4 Banshees. I got my notes up to double check. So this is where it's like super critical. Okay, wait, how do I do this? I'm gonna have to type it in chat, and you're gonna have to like think about this in your own time because it's a bit hard to explain. We'll see how this comes across. That doesn't come across very well. It's basically when Phantom dies, if 4 or more, no, if more than 4 Banshees are alive, wait 20 seconds. After 20 seconds, if 3 or more, sorry, let me do it this way. 5 or more Banshees are alive, wait 20 seconds. Then if 3 or more Banshees are alive, wait 10 seconds. So what that's saying is, if there's 5 Banshees alive when the Phantom dies, you have to wait 20 seconds. You're on a timer for 20 seconds. But after those 20 seconds, if there's still 3 or more Banshees alive, you have to wait another 10 seconds. So it's important to keep the Banshee count, like keep trying to bring that Banshee count lower. Because even if you get put on that 20-second timer, you want to avoid being on that 10-second timer, right? So if you have less than 5 Banshees alive, you just skip that 20-second timer straight up. Correct, yeah. When Phantom dies, counts as deloads. Yeah. So if you let the Phantom fly in, fly out, and when it deloads, there's more than 5 Banshees alive, and then after 20 seconds, there's more than 3 Banshees alive, that in total is about 1:10. It takes about 45 seconds, 40 to 45 seconds for the Phantoms to fly in and out. And then you're giving yourself like the maximum timer. But like in a speedrun sense, that would never happen. But it counts. It's very unlikely that when the Phantom deloads, you're gonna have more than 5 or more Banshees alive. So okay, so then this is where it becomes unless you're going for a world record. Okay, so this is yes, you're correct. So you're correct. So how it works ideally is one of 2 ways. Okay, I'll give you like the general case, right? There's 2 general cases, and then there's like world record instant more Phantoms is what it's called, or IMP is what Harker calls it. IMP is instant more Phantoms, and that's what you need for world record, where as soon as you kill the Phantom, and you have to kill the Phantom, you can't let it deload, you get the next wave spawning. And that means that you kill the Phantom and there's 2 or less Banshees alive. You get instant dialogue from Dutch saying more Phantoms. However, that is very difficult to manage to get the Banshee count that low before the Phantom flies off and kill the Phantom. So there's 2 things that can happen. One is you just kill the Banshees as much as you can and let the Phantom fly off. And as I said, the Phantoms take about 40 to 45 seconds. Actually, it's more like 45 to 50 seconds to fly in and out. So you have like 45 seconds to drop the Banshee count to 2 or less. And then as soon as it deloads, you get the next wave. That's the next wave. So it takes 45 seconds to get to the next wave. Or if you can get the Banshee count down to 2 or less, sorry, let me start again. I'm getting confused. If you get the Banshee count between 3 or 4 Banshees and kill the Phantom early, you put yourself on the 10-second timer. But after 10 seconds, you get the next wave, and you've killed the Phantom early, right? So the question is, when is it best to put yourself on the 10-second timer versus let the Phantom fly off and get the Banshee count down to a 0-second timer? Okay, does that make sense? I may have been a bit confusing. I can try and say it again. You either let the Phantom fly off and try and go for the 0-second timer, or you can go for killing the Phantom early, which saves time because the Phantom dies early, but then you put yourself on a 10-second timer. When is that beneficial to do? Well, it takes a bit under 10 seconds for the Phantoms to fly off. So once the Phantoms start flying off, if it's better to try and go for the 0-second timer than to go for the 10-second timer, which means you want to try and bring the Banshee count down to 2 or less. If the Banshee count is already 2 or less and the Phantom's flying off, it is worthwhile to kill it, right? Because you're killing it a few seconds early before it deloads and you go to the 0-second timer. But if there's 3 or 4 Banshees alive and the Phantom is starting to fly off, it's better to let it fly off and to try and bring the Banshee count down to 2 or less. So what that looks like is...
Phantom coming in left. It's on.
Okay, so I think there's 3 Banshees alive. There's 4 Banshees alive. That's fine. So with 4 Banshees alive, Phantom deloads. 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's 5 Banshees alive. Let's try it again.
Cover your ears.
Okay, so with 3 Banshees alive, Phantom deloads. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then next wave, right?
Let me get a line on them. Backflash clear.
Did I get the... I missed the guy.
Turret's mine.
Phantom deloads with 2 Banshees alive. Oh my god, I misclicked.
I got him in my sight.
Watch the backflash. I got turret. Good work.
Did I not get in time?
Ow. Laser ready. Turret's all mine. Well, this fire is partially done.
Two Banshees, right?
More phantoms.
Okay, more Phantom. So, oh, that's a bad checkpoint. Okay, so we got the center. Did we? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so right now, let me get a checkpoint here. There's 5 Banshees alive. So what I can try and do is bring this Banshee count down. Now there's still more Banshees spawning, right?
I got him in my sights. You are heading for a sprint. That's the backflash. Where's your
So now 2, 3, 4, there's 5 Banshees alive.
Keep her steady. That's right. That's just happened. Well, now remember and tell your buddies back home what a beating we gave you.
I'll try and show you the 10-second timer while killing the Phantom, but
I need an angle.
spawns are a bit rough. And I don't have missile pods, Andy.
Stay with him. Stay with him. Gonna get you a posthumous medal.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
You got him.
9, 10.
More phantom.
More Phantoms. So that was faster by a few seconds than letting that Phantom fly off and bringing the camp Banshee count down to 2 or less. So does that make sense? Hey TJ, thanks for the good luck. But it was only a few seconds faster, right? It's faster, but it was only a few seconds faster. Okay, so then the best case scenario is that when I killed that Phantom, the Banshee count was low enough that it was instant spawn. What can go wrong sometimes is if you give your teammates the fuel rod, or if they just go ham with the rockets, they can kill the Phantom, or if you make a mistake, right? Like if there's Banshees behind buildings that you can't see, and you think the Banshee count's low enough, but you can't see it. If you kill, or your teammates kill the Phantom when there's 5 or more Banshees, and you're on the 20-second timer, you have to be really cognizant to keep working on Banshees because you want to avoid the 10-second timer that comes after that. If you got 5 Banshees, you're on a 20-second timer, and then you still have 3 Banshees, you're going to go on another 10-second timer. So you actually have to avoid the second 10-second timer. One approach that I think is a bit too YOLO to really do is you could like try and put yourself on that 20-second timer really quickly.
Reloading.
Phantom, dead ahead.
Last mag.
So now I'm on a 20-second timer, I'm pretty sure, based off the... Oh, so The thing is that, like, the reason instant more phantoms works is that you kill the phantom before Banshee spawn. So you actually have the Banshee count artificially lower. So you see that Banshee spawn? It spawned after the phantom died, so it actually didn't count for the quota. So now I'm trying to avoid the 10-second timer. I think I'm on a 20-second timer. Nice miss. And that was, I think, a 20-second timer. So in a sense, that actually wasn't that slow, right? Because I killed the phantom as soon as it arrived. Which means I killed it earlier, so I saved time, but then I put myself on a 20-second timer. So that loses time, but it kind of balances out a little bit. However, I think that's a bit too YOLO, because if you stuff up and you get yourself with too many Banshees at the end of the 20 seconds, then you're risking a 10-second timer in addition. Okay, that's the second rotation. Does that make sense?
Hard. Badge up, dead ahead.
So ideally, you set yourself up for the last wave as well. So here I'm setting myself up for the last wave.
Sore and tired and ready for vengeance. Hey, watch this. Holy crap! Nice. More phantoms. Hit 'em hard.
Okay. So in full game, I think letting the phantom fly off and going for the 0-second timer with 2 or less Banshees alive is really good. I try and greed those extra few seconds by putting myself on the 10-second timer. So I try and kill the phantom early sometimes, put myself on a 10-second timer, provided that there's enough Banshees dead. If I think there's 3 or 4 Banshees alive and the phantom's just arrived, I will go for the 10-second timer. I'll go kill the phantom early, save 15 seconds, and then put myself on a 10-second timer, and then so that balances out to like 1 to 5 seconds of time save. I try and go for that in full game, but it's a bit nerdy and a bit risky, because what often happens is I think there's 4 Banshees alive, or I think there's 3 Banshees alive, so I kill the phantom to go for a 10-second timer, and then it turns out there's 5 because they're hiding behind buildings and I can't see them. So it does bite me in the backside quite a bit. And that's why I think for full game, it's not a bad idea just to go for the 0-second timer. Sometimes you don't get the 0-second timer. Sometimes the Banshees are flying behind the buildings and there'll be 3 alive and the phantom deloads and you have to wait 10 seconds. You know, and if you killed the phantom earlier, you would have put yourself on that 10-second timer sooner, so it would be over sooner. But that's just getting unlucky with the way the Banshees fly. So I look to get the Banshee count to 3 or 4 and to kill the phantom. If the phantom is starting to fly off and I don't think the Banshee count's low enough, I'll just let it fly off. But I look to try and get the Banshee count to 3 or 4 and kill the phantom to save a few more seconds. Okay, so that's second rotation. This whole time you want to try and be managing missile pod ammo and Spartan laser ammo as to where your Spartan lasers are. If you've got the Banshee count down to 2 or less and you're waiting for the phantom to fly off, that's a good time to try and get your missile pods set up. Right? Or, you know, if you've killed the Phantom, you're on a 10-second timer, and most of the Banshees are dead or out of range, go get your, and you're waiting for the more Phantoms from Dutch, get your missile pods in a good spot, get the new laser, a fresh laser, get your rockets back in stock. You just got to try and manage your ammo and learn how to manage it. And be thinking like, if I use this missile pod now, that means I can't use it in a later rotation. Maybe I should walk a little bit further at the start to get a missile pod further away. So that gives me the safety net of having a missile pod that's closer, ready to go at the end. Because who knows, maybe it's going to get a bit yikes at the end, and I need all the resources I can get. So I try and leave one of these two missile pods usually for the ending. Or you could just invest those first two missile pods at the front in the first wave to try and get the wave fight started fast. Okay, so then the last wave, it's the exact same principle, except there's two Phantoms for center last and left last. With left last, there is a relatively sort of consistent approach to getting the Banshee count down to 2 or less and killing both Phantoms. And that means the jetpack brute Phantom will spawn instantly. Alternatively, you can let the second Phantom or the first Phantom fly off and try and get the 0-second timer. Or you can try and kill the Phantoms quickly, but put yourself on a 10-second timer. So it's the exact same principle as the second rotation. The way the left last works is maybe before the wave spawns, you use a missile. So you want at least 3 laser shots. 3 or 4. Before these Banshees are in range, you might use a Spartan laser on a stray Banshee off to the side. Or it might be in range, so you might be on the missile pod. Or if there's no other Banshees like on the map at all, you can use a Spartan laser on these guys. And then hop on. And then you want to hope that these missile pods hit. Hope that the missile pods hit. And I find that, so then once all the Banshees are dead, shoot this guy 4 times, let this guy fly in, and after you're done missile podding all the Banshees on the left, you want to look here. There's a Banshee here that I could have lasered, or over here that I lasered. Those are the 2 sort of close spawns. Sometimes you get one over here as well. And if you can kill between the first Phantom and the second Phantom, so if you kill all the Banshees you can see while on the missile pod, and then kill the first Phantom, 1 to 2 Banshees later will be enough to put yourself on the 0-second timer. Let's see if I actually hit it. I'm not sure. So I didn't actually. This Banshee actually mattered. So we can try it again.
All right! Be careful!
Because these missile pods miss quite a bit, I often detach it and shoot 2, 2, then 4. I don't think this is enough, but see, I don't know if that Banshee died soon enough. Sometimes it's like the later second or so. Yeah, but And this is where just learning what missile pods you have available to you is useful.
I'll take the turret.
So if I know I haven't got a missile pod behind me, I won't detach this too quickly.
I'm on guard. Hoorah!
And you can see why you want at least three spine laser shots for this left side end. I'm just getting unlucky with missile pods.
Phantom coming in left. Let me get a line on him.
Dude.
He's history. All right. There. Phantom coming in left. Seriously, close your eyes. Yeah. It's down. Ow. Oh, backlash.
10-second timer still? So I put myself on a 10-second timer, but this is actually, yeah. So you can see, like, sometimes the Banshees are just out of range, and you can't get the Banshee count down to 2 or less, but that was faster than letting it fly off. And even if I let it fly off, you know, would I have time to kill one of these 3 Banshees before it flies off? Maybe I would. So the other approach is just to let it fly off. So what I just did, even though I was on a 10-second timer, was probably slower.
Phantom coming in left. I got an angle.
So what I just did by putting myself on a 10-second timer and letting this guy fly off, that's probably slower than this. You can see how long it takes.
Hot love. Coming at you.
This guy takes a bit more than 10 seconds, but yeah. That's so large flanks with the raid. Thank you for the raid. I'll just finish this off because I'm basically done. But the only thing to note is that no copy pasta in chat. So with right last, it's difficult to get the Banshee count down to 2 when the Phantom deloads. You can do it, but it can be difficult. So I often try and intentionally put myself on a 10-second timer for right last. Or I try and assess, like, right last, sometimes I kill the Phantom and put myself on a 10-second timer, and sometimes I try and go for the 0-second timer deload. With center last, one approach to do is
I'll take the turret. Phantom coming in left.
so imagine this was center last. Yeah, sorry, thanks for the raid, Large. I'm just gonna finish this off and then because I'm almost done. So if this is center last, then this left Phantom comes in first and then the right Phantom. And the left Phantom flies off and deloads first. and then the right phantom flies off and deloads. Once they have both deloaded, then it does the check to see how many banshees are alive. What you can do is you can leave the left phantom alive and let it fly off and deload, but kill the second phantom, because that's the one that takes the longest to fly off and deload. You saw before I was waiting ages and ages for this phantom to fly off. That was because it was the second one, and it's a bit slower. So what you can do, if it's center last, is you leave the first one alive and just try and kill the second one. Sort of like...
Hey, what's this? It's raining Banshee. Give me an angle.
Oh, jeez. Well, imagine that guy died. And that way, like, you give yourself time to bring the Banshee count down, but you're not waiting forever. I hope that makes sense. That might not have been communicated. Because sometimes you want the phantoms to stay alive sometimes, because it gives you time to bring the Banshee count low. So sometimes the phantoms being alive is good. Sometimes you want them to deload in like 10 seconds rather than 20 seconds. It's like, okay, I can't kill the phantoms now because there's too many banshees alive. It's going to take me like 10 more seconds to kill the banshees that I need. But the second phantom's going to deload in 20 seconds. That's a long ass time. I'm going to kill the second phantom and let the first phantom deload in 10 seconds, and that's enough time that I need to get the Banshee count to 0. Or to a 0-second timer, and then you get the time save. So I reckon for right last, it's just one phantom, it's just you and the Banshees and that one phantom. For middle last, you can consider leaving the left guy alive and killing the right one. For left last has got the most consistent setup for getting the instant jetpack brute phantom. That's why left last is generally better. Middle last is also okay. Right last is just rough. But again, if you're on a 10-second timer, that can be okay as long as you get the 10-second timer early. Okay, I hope that's basically it. And then the jetpack brute phantom is just do a lineup such that you don't soft lock. So other than trying to just learn when to use missile pods, detached, attached, and when to use Spartan laser, and like when it's in range and stuff, that's like it, I think. Okay, that's good. So the basic is like, if you just let all the phantoms drive by and fly off, as long as you keep the Banshee count down low enough, you can get 0-second timers on every deload. And that's reasonably fast. The idea that makes it go faster is to get 0-second timers when killing the phantoms early. That's the time save. That's the ultimate time save. The small time save is killing the phantoms early, like 15 seconds early, but putting yourself on a 10-second timer. Ideally, you want to kill them 15 seconds early and be on a 0-second timer. But like in full game, or you can't always get that. Just save time. True. Okay, I think that's NMPD done. Again, it just takes a bit of time managing which missile pods to use when and where, and which Spartan lasers to use when and where, managing rocket ammo. Like, that just takes a bit of practice. And like learning it's the general principle is that missile pod things that are in range to missile pod, because Spartan laser range is invaluable. It sucks when there's 3 Banshees alive, the Phantom's flying off, and you just need to kill one more Banshee before the Phantom deloads, but you're out of Spartan laser ammo, and they're all out of range of your missile pods. And it's just like you can't do anything about it. You're helpless to stop it. So Spartan laser ammo is too valuable for long range shots that you often have to risk close range missile pod usage. Even though the missile pod can miss, even at close range targets, you just have to go for it sometimes because the Spartan laser ammo is too valuable for long range. And then the RNG is just the order of rotation can be a bit annoying because I was saying left last is generally a good setup, and left first is generally bad because it's on the far side of the wave fight and the Banshees fly in kind of quickly. So the order rotation's a little bit RNG, but in terms of getting sub 5, like most rotations in an IL setting, you could probably get sub 5. Like it's doable, particularly if you have good movement and get like a 2-minute or earlier. If you get a new intel split, like the wave fight starts at 2 minutes or earlier, yeah, like any rotation can probably sub 5. The Banshee spawns are RNG as to where they spawn. They're kind of like if you get a right side rotation or a left side rotation, you get certain spawns, but you don't get the same spawns for a left side or a right side or a center. You get this. You could get a right side rotation one run, and you get some spawns. You get a right side rotation the next run, and you can get different set of spawns. There's some common spawns, but you can get different ones. And then just Banshee pathing. Sometimes they fly behind buildings, sometimes they don't. And missile pods can miss. And then the only other RNG is like teammate RNG, like how useful your teammates are, whether they hit their shots or not. The only other thing you might see me do is I try and get these guys off the turrets. So rather than Nikki being on a machine gun, which is pretty useless, you get him on the rockets. And same with this guy. If you can, this guy doesn't seem to want to get off. But yeah. But maybe in full game you want to control the wave fight a bit. So you actually want your teammates just on machine gun turrets and you just doing all the work. Because you don't want them killing the Phantoms too early. Pros and cons. Hey Joan, thanks for the good luck. The last little thing that I just mentioned, this is actually it, the legit last thing. Sometimes Banshees are flying behind this building here.
Phantom coming in left.
And they will stay there until the Phantoms start to fly off. And then they actually poke their heads out and try and fight you. So if there's lots of Banshees alive or a Phantom nearby, the game's logic is like, we don't want to chuck all the enemies at the player at the same time. So we're just going to have some Banshees like chill in the background. And once the Banshee's nearby, all the Phantoms are flying off, then we'll send in more enemies because we don't want to overload the player. We'll wait till there's, some space to send these enemies in. So, so if there's 3 Banshees alive and you want to keep an eye out for as the Phantom's flying out to see which ones are going to fly towards you. So you can try and kill one of them to get down to the 0-second timer before it deloads. But anyway, that's that. Done.